see the engineers and the construction workers building new carbon capture and green hydrogen plants to forge cleaner steel and cement and produce clean power.
Did you get that there? President Biden outlining his plan to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. He wants to cut them in half. Biden announcing his green energy ambitions during a virtual climate summit with dozens of world leaders, including China's President Xi Jinping, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has a new culprit for climate change as well. Take a listen.
It does not have a random or environmental genesis. It's not just human-caused. It's societally caused. The climate crisis is a crisis born of injustice, and it is a crisis born of the pursuit of profit at any and all human and ecological cost.
AOC and her progressive colleagues reintroducing the Green New Deal outside the Capitol in hopes that it will, inject some new life into that piece of legislation. Let's welcome in now North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn to talk a little bit more about this and some other stuff as well. Congressman, great to see you again.
John, great to be back on your show, my friend.
So, every time I listen to AOC talk, I have to ask myself this question. Does anybody talk like that anywhere else besides Washington, D.C.? What is she talking about?
It's so difficult to be able to follow what these Democrats are talking about. And I actually cringe to say Democrats because these people are full-on socialists. They're trying to seize the means of production in our country. That this Green New Deal that they're using and trying to push it through with their infrastructure plan, it's intellectually dishonest. It's a Trojan horse. This really is not going to create anything that's going to be any more green. It's going to spend over $50 trillion, which we do not have. All the while, you're going to have President Xi Jinping over in China not having to take any actions until 2040. And meanwhile, they are the greatest carbon emitters by a long shot in this world. The problem is that, none of the ideas that the Democrats actually have would fix the climate problem that we have in this country. And really, we don't have that much of a problem because free societies actually tend to be clean societies. But really, I believe it's the Republicans and conservatives who truly have the right idea of how to have a green planet.
John Kerry is going to be in the White House press briefing today. If you were inside that room, what would you like to ask him?
I'd raise my hand and say, Mr. Kerry, why do you always tend to move away from things like nuclear power? Why do you say that we actually don't have any way to fix our country? Why do you allow people like AOC to say that our world is going to end in 12 years, which I believe 2 of those years have already passed. So, in 10 years, it's all going to be over, John.
Yeah. There is, some work on this happening among Republicans. Republicans don't completely have their heads in the sand on this issue. Talk to us, Madison, about the kind of conservative proposals to deal with this issue.
Absolutely. I by no means define myself as a green tree-hugging hippie, but I definitely do believe in conservation. In Genesis, I'm called to be a steward of the earth. And so I believe in passing off a world that's more healthy than the one that I received to the next generation. But the way I believe that we do that is, we obviously diversify our energy portfolio. So that means more things like solar. That means more things like nuclear energy, which I believe is really the best option. But also it means we're putting more money into research and development. Did you know that fracking is actually the #1 catalyst for the reduced carbon emissions we have in this country? And that's all from still using fossil fuels, but doing it in a better manner.
Yeah, we've seen amazing developments when it comes to things like fracking and the use of natural gas, and this is one of the reasons why we've become a net exporter of energy and have, been able to sustain our own nuclear independence. So important. Let's talk about some other stuff happening up there. Just today, H.R. 51 passing the House. They're always so clever with these names. H.R. 51 is the bill that would make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. They kind of did this thing with H.R. 1, too, their most important thing. But anyway, here's Speaker Pelosi talking about H.R. 51.
Washingtonians, as the Congresswoman said, pay taxes, fight in our wars, contribute to the economic might of our country. But for centuries, they have been denied their right to representation.
They could become part of Maryland or Virginia if they wanted to.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's really the best way forward. Our founders never intended Washington, D.C. to be a place that people lived. Because, my friend, our founders never intended there to be career politicians, people who had their entire lives wrapped up in Washington, D.C. And that's why I believe we have so many problems going on in our country right now, is primarily because so many people choose to live in Washington, D.C., thus creating the need to actually have an entire community around this area. But I believe that really everywhere should just go back to the states. I think it should go back to Maryland. Virginia's already taken back the part of the property that they originally had given up for the Capitol. And now that I believe that the best way to move forward is to say that Washington, D.C. and the Capitol complex is not part of any state. It doesn't get any electoral votes because it's really just a tricky way for Joe Biden to get 3 more electoral votes because he'd be the only family voting. And so I genuinely believe that this is a terrible idea. It's a complete Democratic power grab to try and take control of the Senate. And really, it's something that's just disingenuous.
John F. Kennedy described Washington, D.C. as a place with all the hospitality of a northern city and all the efficiency of a southern one. Obviously a joke there. Madison, great to see you. Congressman Cawthorn, we appreciate your time, sir.
John, as always, talk to you soon, brother.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.